Chapter 33. The bookstore was quiet and dark. It was nothing compared to the excitement of the last few days, much to Alicia's delight. Alicia enjoyed the chance to regroup, but Kenny soon grew bored. A room full of books and none that he could read. Alicia moved out of her chair enough to whisper in Kenny's ear. "Want to go on an adventure?" "Yeah," he said back, his face spread into a grin. Retta had returned back downstairs, and Alicia could hear him shuffling around on the other side of the door. She wasn't sure what he thought about them being dumped on his lap, and wanted to stay out of his way as much as possible. She soon got an idea. "Out there." Alicia pointed to the rows of bookshelves. "There are two carnivorous beasts that live in the jungle. They are protecting a famous artifact. We brave explorers have to explore quietly until we find the right artifact and make it back to our camp without being caught." "What artifact are we looking for?" "I'm not sure. It is hidden by magic, but when we find it, then it will reveal itself." They set off, crouched down low and walking slowly. When Kenny would burst into giggles, Alicia would put her fingers up to her lips, but she laughed along with him. The books were varied. Some spines were blank. Others were labeled with writing that almost looked like runes. More books had a script that looked like fancy calligraphy but with unrecognizable letters. There were even scrolls on the shelves. They walked row after row. Alicia was looking for something that would help her make sense of this world. She wasn't sure what exactly, but she did know it would be something that she could understand. They passed a set of stairs that led to a second floor. Alicia thought about going up and seeing if there was anything that would be entertaining to an 8-year-old. Then she decided against it. It was one thing to be sneaking around a public space. Upstairs was probably private. It was most likely best not to upset the person who was harboring them. Instead, they went forward, down the last row of shelves. Here they were rewarded. One side of the shelf was full of human books for all age ranges. The books were mass-produced and came in multiple languages, but most were in English. The other side was full of elven books written for children. There were stacks of picture books that looked like grade school primers piled up on each other. They looked like the most used books in the shop. While Kenny wandered over to the human books, Alicia picked up one of the picture books. It looked just like the books she had used to teach Kenny how to read. It was even shaped the same, just paper folded over and sewn at the binding. She opened it up and marveled at the pictures. It seemed to be hand-painted. The pictures showed a boy who grew tomato plants. Under the pictures were words made out of a circular script with lots of lines leading the way from the loops. They were just unrecognizable symbols on a page, especially since she didn't know the sounds. Although, as she stared down at the words, there was a faint tingling in the back of her head. It was similar to when Kenny did magic. Alicia looked around, hoping to see a book that would translate English to Elven. She knew it was a long shot, but it seemed her only chance. There didn't seem to be one, but she did find a book of pictures with the Elven words next to them. She picked up her small pile of books and went over to Kenny. He was sitting on the floor, reading a book with a teenage wizard on the cover. "Look what I found!" Alicia showed him the books. "This is Elven?" "I'm pretty sure. Too bad we don't know any of the sounds. Maybe we can ask Sadar later." Kenny put down his chapter book and picked up the book with the painted objects. He peered at it intently. Then he flipped through the pages until he stopped on a page with a tree illustrated across 2 pages. The roots reached across the bottom of the page, and the lush greenery of the top dominated the left side of the page. On the right side, floating in the sky, there was a word. Kenny began moving his mouth like he was trying to sound it out. Alicia recognized the gesture from helping him to learn to read. Then he burst out, "Alda! The word says Alda. It means tree." "How do you know that?" "The words speak. You just have to listen closely." "You mean the words speak as the earth speaks?" "No, well, maybe. They both speak magic, but the earth's magic is different. The words seem to have word magic. It's like they want people to know what they say, so they help them out." Alicia looked at the word for tree and thought, Alda. She tried to clear her mind of everything but the tree and the Elven word. The buzzing was there, almost like an itch in her mind, but then it flittered away out of her reach. Alicia sat back down and focused on her son. He seemed to have moved on from the small pile of books and had grabbed a book with more words than pictures. He was struggling with it, but he seemed to be reading it. "Do you understand it?" she asked. "Yes, but it is still hard. I have to learn to read all over again." "You're picking it up fast. It took you much longer to learn to read English." "That was hard. I had to practice. This is almost like the words are reading themselves. Can books be magic?" "I don't know." Alicia sat down next to Kenny. The shelves were close together, but there was enough room for them to sit down side by side. She looked at the story he had picked up. It was a picture book with hand-illustrated pictures and several handwritten sentences on each page. "What is the story about?" "It's about a unicorn that wants to be a rainbow. Do you think there are unicorns?" "I don't know. There doesn't seem to be many animals, so I would guess no. However, I've recently learned magic is real, so I guess anything is possible." She reached out and tickled Kenny. His giggles echoed through the store. Alicia went to tell him to be quiet but stopped, wondering if it really mattered. "Do you think you can read me the book?" she asked. Kenny started reading in Elven. The words were coming out of his mouth in the same high-pitched tone used at the market. She winced and put her hands to the top of her head, squeezing gently to settle herself. There was the normal noise drilling into her brain, but there was something else, like her body was rejecting the words as they were spoken. Kenny seemed to realize her discomfort. He switched to speaking English. His finger pointed to each word as he spoke. He spoke fast, seeing the words in Elven and pronouncing them in English without hesitation. The reading level of the book was fairly young, but it still seemed impossible. When Retta walked down the aisle, Kenny closed the book. They both sat up, guilty. He said something to Kenny in Elven. Kenny nodded his head in agreement. "He can understand Elven," Retta said to Alicia. "Yes, a little. I don't understand how he could have picked it up so fast." "The Elven language is magic. Since Kenny is such a strong magic user, he will naturally connect to the language. He will be fluent soon. You will be able to learn it, I think, but it will probably fight you at every turn. It has been quite some time since there have been humans here, but I may be wrong. This whole situation is unique. There has never been a half-elf before. That is bound to be a factor." "There has never been a half-elf before," Alicia thought. "Why—" Alicia halted, unsure of how to continue. "Why do you think it has happened now, if there has never been a half-elf before?" "I think that is a really good question, and I wish I had an answer for you. All I can say is that magic has rules like any other system, but that doesn't mean we understand all the rules. There is something about your son that needed to be, and here he is." They both turned to look at Kenny sitting and reading. At the attention, he looked up and smiled at them, and when they did not talk to him, he went back to reading. "I came over here to tell you that I have some errands to run, and I think it would be a good idea for you both to come with me." Alicia was shaking her head in dissent before he had even finished speaking. "I think we should stay here. It took a lot for us to get here, and I'm sure it's safer if we stay." "I assure you that I am capable of protecting both you and the prince, although from what I hear, you are both formidable yourself." "I didn't mean to insult you. I'm sure we will be safe with you. It's just that every time Sadar leaves, trouble comes." "Trust me when I say he can bring his own share of trouble to your life." He sighed dramatically, but it was offset by the dreamy smile on his face. Alicia looked at Retta questioningly, but not wanting to push. "It is hard to love someone with different ideological principles." The words flowed freely from him. He seemed so open after spending so much time with Sadar. Yet maybe that is how love is. Two fates separated by their destinies, fighting to be with each other, unable to stay apart. "Do you ever think that maybe you spend too much time with your books?" "You don't believe in love?" "I don't understand it. I've never needed to be around a lot of people, and I've never felt an attraction to anyone." "Everyone is different, and it is our differences that make us great. I'm a romantic. I knew the first time I saw Sadar that we were destined for a tragic love story. I was visiting a warehouse, uninvited. It was full of food just sitting there, unneeded." As he spoke, Retta's hands flowed as if acting out the story. "So I decided it would be best to help make sure that it didn't go to waste, for a reasonable price. I ran with a local group. We had been quite busy and were causing a nuisance to the nobles. Retta chuckled to himself, lost in his own reminiscing. So they sent in their Bloodsworn. We managed to escape, and he thankfully never saw me. It was all quite dramatic. I managed to arrange to run into him a few nights later, and the attraction came quite easily to both of us. How long until he realized you were a thief? Oh, I like you. Nice and direct. He knew right away, of course. He helped me move away from that group, but I could never quite live up to his noble expectations. And he could never understand what it was like to grow up outside the palace. Where do you want to take us? Tell me the truth. Like I said, I have some errands to run. Retta's voice turned serious, the easy humor gone. There are some people I think you and your son should see. No one dangerous, no one too important, just people trying to survive. Alicia looked down at her son. Although she was sure he had listened in on everything that was said, he was still focused on the book, so it didn't surprise her when he spoke. I think we should go. I know you were worried, but Sadar wouldn't have left if he didn't think Retta could keep me safe. Besides, I can do magic here. I still don't know, Alicia said. You have always taught me that it is important to help other people. So how can I know how to help unless we go see what the people need help with? Maybe it is not our place to help. But the words rang hollow to Alicia's ears as she said them. Kenny finally put his book down and looked up. His lips quivered as he spoke. I belong here. I need to be around the elves to help me figure out what is happening and how to keep everyone safe. Before, I was so different from everyone, and I didn't know why. Now I know. They need me as much as I need them. Maybe it is not my job, but I want to help. There are bad people here, and because of that, I had to do something bad. I want to help stop them. I want to help the people so they don't have to do bad things and make up for the bad things I had to do. I know I had to save you, but I still want to do more good things than bad. Alicia sat down next to Kenny and wrapped him in her arms. He climbed into her lap and snuggled like he used to do when he was smaller. We're going to get this figured out. We will find a way to get you safe. Then we are going to go home. You can go back to school and I'll find a new job. We will go back to see Master Kang. Don't you miss him? Kenny nodded. I do, he said in a tearful voice. But it was so hard there. The words hit Alicia deeply. She remembered her own school days that she spent watching all the other children laugh and play. Every time she tried to join in, she did something wrong. They taunted her, ridiculed her until she thought she would break. She never belonged. She just tried to find a way to survive. How could she ask the same of her son, if there was a place he really was a part of? If we go with you, he'll be safe? Alicia looked up at Retta for assurance. I promised that if anything were to happen, I would protect him with my life. He said it with such intensity that Alicia did not doubt his declaration. Okay, we can go. Good. We need to leave soon. We need to make sure we are back in time. In time for what? Alicia asked. It is just not best to be outside too late at night. You can get changed now. Retta gestured for them to stand and then ushered them towards the stairs that they had found earlier. If you walk up the stairs and enter the first door, you will find outfits that I left out for you. You can also take a shower. You have running water? Alicia asked. Retta glared at her for a few seconds and then sighed. It is only technology that does not work here. Plumbing, while a marvel, is not actual technology. However, the water may be a bit colder than your world. We have to use alternate means of heating the water. We are quite fortunate as humans have put in all the work of creating the piping for the building. We get to enjoy it. There are also the workings for electricity here. The wiring is in the walls, even the switches are there. But if you were to flick a switch, nothing would happen. So many elves choose to cover them up instead. Now get ready. I will be waiting for you down here.